Thank you. It's the weather here is terrible, so it's not a bad day to be inside, I don't think. How about yourself?
Excellent. Very good. It's just a little bit past 8 here in Texas, but I'm not a very good American because I do drink very strong tea that I make
Oh,
in a
I have
pot.
tea
So,
as well,
cheers.
so my name is Malory, so I'm the it's a pen name that comes from writing on Royal Road. So my books that have been published thus far have all come through Royal Road via publishers, and I've been doing this full time now for 2 years now, I think it is. So it's been a very much long held dream really to be able to do this for a living. So and I've never written young adult before, so it's been a real experience to put a young adult book together for Rack Press really.
So I'm kind of surprised you've only been doing this for 2 years because you've got quite an extensive list on Amazon for
Oh,
publication.
I've been writing my whole life, and suddenly finding people that want to read it means you can then roll your roll your backlog out, really, doesn't it? So, and that's really what I've been doing over the last couple of years. Really, it's only quite recently I've started to do brand new things, but it's been very nice to be able to roll out things that I'd written quite some time ago and repurpose them for people who want to read them.
What actually pushed you over the edge to just say, I'm finally going to start publishing?
I think I'd never heard of Royal Road, and a friend had mentioned that it was probably a good idea to get other people's views on what I'd written rather than just friends and family. And I'd never really thought about publishing at all. And I put my first trilogy went on Royal Road and got quite a lot of positive feedback. And I found a publisher from that, and I fortunately that got turned into an audio book, and that meant I had enough of an advance there to be able to give up work and focus on doing this full time. And I've managed to keep it going thus far, and hopefully we'll keep it going moving forward.
What was that attraction to writing for you?
I mean, it always has. I mean, it was before I did this. I was a teacher of English, so books really have been my whole life. And I think having that interest in words and really enjoying the way the words work on the page, I've always written. But then finding that you can turn something that's really a passion, something you've always enjoyed doing, into something other people want to read. That's quite a movement forward, isn't it? So that was quite an easy move forward. And now just being able to sit and write for the day is pretty much living the dream.
And what do you like to read?
Fantasy really has always been my favourite. Terry Pratchett has been my all time favourite, but Dickens as well. I think there's a lot of similarity between the way they explore cities, and I think that's always been something I've been fascinated with. Really, is that having always lived in cities, I live in Birmingham in the West Midlands, which is a big industrial city in England. And it's always been a real interest to see how that sort of world is explored. And then I think in my writing, I do tend to like the setting tends to be quite important to the way that the world works, and it's usually the setting that's behind whatever's taking place, really.
How did you get together with Royal Road?
It was just mentioned to me by a friend, so it's I'd never heard of it, and I think the idea of there being a website where you daily put your chapters on, and then hundreds upon hundreds of people will comment on it was brilliant, really. And I know for a lot of people, I think they find I think it can be quite a vicious environment, and I think people can be they hate it or they love it. But I've found the feedback to be really useful, and I think because it happens in real time, so that you actually, while you're writing it and while the narrative is progressing, people are commenting on what you're doing. I think has been very valuable to what I produce, because I think when you have something in your head that you think is brilliant, and you write 80,000 words of it, and at that stage people go, yeah, not so much. That can be quite difficult. But I think when it's in progress and people are saying, well, that character doesn't work, and I've got somebody at the moment that I think has commented on every single chapter, they hate a decision that the MC has made. We're about 20 chapters in now, and it's still a constant thing. And I think that does make you think, well, maybe I'm not quite getting this right. So it is very useful, I think, to have that very instant feedback coming. But I would encourage anyone really that's interested in exploring how their writing works. The Royal Road's brilliant. It's free. It's very easy to navigate with, and there's an audience there that will pick up your typos. And what more could you hope for, really?
That's wonderful. So this is like a basically an online writers group.
Yeah,
Okay.
Royal Road. It's predominantly for fantasy writing. So, but it's a website, very well established now. It's been there for about 10 years, and the way that it works really is that it just every time you upload something, it tells the readers something's been updated, and then people will come and have a look. They can subscribe to you so that they know when the updates happen. And there are hundreds upon thousands of different writers that are there. So it is like a writing group, but it's also very much focused on fantasy writing, sci-fi writing.
Mm.
They're really exactly my wheelhouse. And if anyone's a writer who hasn't explored it, at the very least have a look and have a read of what's there, because there are some amazing writers that are there, and often people that are now published that are then try out their drafts there as well. And I think that's a really viable way of trying to keep on top of things as well.
And so you interact with other writers as well. You give feedback there too,
Yeah,
especially
absolutely,
with
yes.
your English teacher
Yeah,
background.
yeah. No,
So,
I mean it is the beauty of it really is you get to know people there whose books you've got on your shelves, and I think that's always a good thing as well, isn't it?
and so what kind of a reader are you? What do you look for when you read? Like what sparks your interest and what draws you in, what pushes you out? What do you like?
I think volume is something I quite like. So I like the idea of it being a series. I like the idea of it being something that's going to engage and interest over a period of time. I grew up with Wheel of Time, and I think that grabs hold of you, doesn't it? When you've got something that you've read over many, many, many years. I love Stephen King's Dark Tower, which is a very, again, very long, very epic series. And I think anything that's got that sort of lengthy, thoroughly engaging world building is something that will always grab hold of me. I think it was a long time joke really. Whenever we go on holiday, you've got to take like 7, 8 books with you to make sure that you've got something that will accompany you on the beach. And I think that being a series is a very very cool thing. I don't know whether the writer Bernard Cornwell has made it much over in America. He writes about the Napoleonic Wars, and there's a series called Sharp's Rifles, which runs across about 22 books, and they all follow the various battles of the Napoleonic War through the character of one figure. But I think Bernard Cornwell's a writer that, again, like Pratchett, I think is someone that I think that style and that creation of the setting has always been very interesting. But anybody that's interested in the Napoleonic Wars, he's really a writer that Sharp's Rifles across. I think it crosses about 20 years of the war is a very much worth following.
And what is it you suppose about that length that draws you in? Is it getting to know the characters or getting to sort of change with the characters as you read or
I think it is that change, isn't it? It's that the idea that you don't just experience a snapshot of a character's life, that you actually follow them across incidents and you follow them over ways that make sense to them as they develop as well. And I think the great stories do that, and you can do it over one book. But I think trying to achieve the sort of consistency and quality of development and as I say, world building that happens over a very long series is very different. And Pratchett was so brilliant at that across 30 odd years he managed to maintain a world and have different characters that would interact and cross sect across that. I think there's great pleasure as well when you read something that's quite a long way into a series and it reflects back on something that you remember happened very, very early on, and you think, I don't know if everybody would know that that's actually a callback joke. I think that's very enriching as a reader when you feel that you're working with an author in a way that obviously you think, oh, I don't know if everybody would have realised that, and I think that's quite a nice quality to it as well.
this is your first children's fiction or young adult fiction from
Yeah.
that and Mr. Grimm's Skull. So how did you get this idea? Why did you want to write it?
So I have an 8-year-old boy, and he obviously can't read any of my adult fiction because it's very violent and very lots of swearing and everything that takes place within it. And I was desperate really for him to be able to read something that of mine, but also the landscape for what he has to read is quite depressing. I think we were looking around for he's a voracious reader, but the things that are appropriate for him, I don't think are either in any way challenging or actually appropriate at the if you go a little bit older. So I was very keen to try to recapture that sort of sense that I could remember from when I was reading, and the sort of Hardy Boys feel, and that famous five, and those sort of very clean but still high stakes adventures, really. Um, and I think that was what we felt was missing. And then I thought, well, I'll try to do one, and I'll try to take the sort of the experiences I've had writing the adventure fiction for adult men, really, and try to put it into something for a much younger audience. And that was the driver, really, was just wanting something I could put in front of him and he'd enjoy, and wouldn't have any of those sort of there is a tendency, I think, for that sort of age fiction to either talk down to them or to have it be almost silly beyond it being. And that wasn't my memory of reading, really. It was always that the stakes were high, and but they were always going to be overcomeable. And I think that there seems to be a gap there where you can have appropriately high stakes for a character without it being despair filled. And I think that was something I was trying to do, was to make it threatening, but they were going to overcome it. That was the key, really.
And that's exactly the kind of conversations we've been having at Rack Press is, where are these books where,
Yeah.
kids are motivated to, try their best and go out on a limb, maybe, you know, put
Yeah.
yourself in danger, but do the right thing and
Yeah.
it's still safe in a
Yeah.
way.
And I think that sense of inevitability that they're going to be able to cope with it as well. That's what I was always remembering from reading something like The Famous Five, is no matter how bad it was, these guys were going to solve it, and you could be relaxed as a reader whilst enjoying the threat. And I wasn't finding that in some of the things we were reading with him. There was either such low stakes that there wasn't that wasn't going to it wasn't as engaging or as enjoyable, or it was too high stakes that these kids weren't all going to make it through. I loved there's a book by Catherine Rundle. It's like Imaginary Creatures or something, and he loved it, and he really enjoyed it. And then the griffin got killed, and he was just heartbroken, and it was just devastating. And I remember flicking through, just like, it's going to come back to life, isn't it? And it doesn't. And it's like, well, I know it's teaching him about loss and everything, but he's 8 and he doesn't need the pet griffin to die halfway through the book. And I remember feeling quite, I think that was almost the starting off point. Like, no, no, we need books where there's the same level of adventure, but the faithful animal doesn't die during it, because that's not something that an 8-year-old really wants to then have a conversation about at night. But it was a brilliant book. But yes, trying to get the success of the mission without needing to remove something from it, really.
And so how did you come up with your world and your characters and
Yeah, so the idea of this story really was the setting of a primary school. So he comes home talking about all these fantastical things that happen at the school that make it sound like he's living in some sort of bizarre alternate universe. And that was the starting off point, really, was, well, primary schools must be quite sinister if you're younger, because you've got all these adults that are moving in them and all these places you're not allowed to go, and they're actually quite a threatening world, really. So that was my starting off point. And then I just sort of wanted to extrapolate out from that, really, with the idea of, well, let's take a primary school and then make it the most sinister school that we possibly can, really. Let's have secret Russian agents within it, and let's have monsters that live below it, and let's have the boy having to be the one that solves it. And that sort of the familiar but made threatening was what I really liked about reading stories when I was younger, and being able to explore that, and also knowing that the boy and his mate are gonna get through this, and they're gonna solve it. And I liked that sense of it, and it grew from there, really.
for your particular book, what do you want it to give your kids read at your readers?
I think I want them to be frightened, but I want them to be frightened knowing it's going to be okay. And I think that's the because there are grotesque moments, and there are moments that are horrible, but they're horrible within a very boxed in, this is going to be okay way. And I think that, and just I loves jump scares. That's the thing he really enjoys in stories at the moment. And I wanted that sort of jump scare moment, but immediately followed up with and this is the solution for how it moves forward and it's going to be okay. Not a jump scare with, oh, and I don't know how that's going to, I don't know how that's going to be left now. Do you don't want to leave an 8 year old going to bed at night fretting? So you always want it to be solved in a way quite quickly. And I think that's what I was looking for was that sense of growing stress, but not too much stress. I think is the vibe of the book.
I love that you're writing this as a parent. You know,
Yes, absolutely.
you've got your son to kind of you can watch him and say, okay, I want him to react this way and not that way, and this is what he's
Yeah.
missing. And I love that you have this immediate perspective.
Yeah. But I think that's I think that's what you have as a writer, but certainly in my adult fiction. It's like, well, what am I looking for to happen? What would I enjoy reading? And I think that instinct's really useful as a writer. But I think there's nothing better than, well, what's my exact reader going to be? And my exact reader is a naughty 8 year old who likes scary things. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
And so how did you get into involved with Raconteur Press?
Um, I saw the open calls, and the first couple weren't things I thought I would be able to write for. And then I saw the one for Vice Noir, and before I left university, I did a master's that was focused on the work of Raymond Chandler, and I saw that there. I thought, well, that is almost exactly my wheelhouse. In that's I know Chandler better than I know any other writer. And I thought, well, let's try that out. And then when that one worked, that was quite a good starting off point for me, really. And then having seen that had been successful, I saw the boys open call, and that was obviously then going to be something I thought, well, I don't know how else. I've got a very well warm path of how to get my fiction published for adults now. I've got several publishers that work with me and I know what they want and how to meet that. But young adult is an entirely different world and would have no idea how to access that. So I think the opportunity to produce something for a publisher that's very much focused on exactly the audience I'm aiming for seemed a pretty good bet really.
Sorry, I had to mute my cat's sneezing. That's why I had to mute myself. I'm sorry. But how did you? So I'm still so surprised that you've only been publishing for 2 years. I'm very envious of that, just explosion of writing. But how did you start shopping around for publishers? And
So
what
I
were you
think
looking for from publishers?
So I think my genre is lit RPG. So I don't know if you know an awful lot about that genre, but it is a very uh, it's a very popular genre with men at the moment. So it's one where there's a lot of appetite really for the production of works. And Royal Road is a direct funnel for that really. So I think as soon as I had a book, it was a book to start with, and it was going to become a trilogy that I knew was likely to be attractive, and that I knew that it was going to be one where people were going to find it of interest. And there were several obvious publishers there that would be looking to take that on board. I've been very fortunate with my publisher Legion, who have worked brilliantly, I think, to get my work, particularly into audio, because that's been the big explosion. Really, is when people are able to listen to your audiobooks. Really, I've had brilliant narrators that have been there as well, and I think that really sets you up as a very clear way forward really for that work. And from that I was very fortunate that another publisher, Royal Guard, had a proposal for me for a series that they'd be interested in, and which was sci-fi, which was very different from my usual way of writing. And my series for them has been very popular. So I'm just finishing off that series now, which is 7 books. And they've been very popular again on audiobook as well as on ebook. And I think those two things together have really been able to give me quite a springboard to explore other things. So I've got quite a few different projects on the go at the moment with different publishers, with Royal Guard and Legion and a couple of others. And that's been brilliant because they're such different styles and they're such different mixture between first person narrator and third person, and some set on space, some set in the past, some set in England, some in America. It's been very interesting to sort of explore different voices.
So you said you were primarily interested in fantasy.
Yeah.
have you sort of been surprised at to be publishing, just going the Raymond Chandler route, the children's route? Are you kind of surprised that you've kind of expanded those?
I think a good story is a good story, and I think what happens there is you then have setting becomes really important, doesn't it? So I think the story for Vice Noir, which I loved writing, is almost it's a plot that could have happened in any of my other genres. It just happened to be deeply, deeply embedded into that place in America, and it was really good fun exploring it. And I had a map out of the journey they were going to take to see how long it would take them to get from the start to the end of the journey. But that fundamental journey could have happened on a ship in space. It could have happened in the valleys in Wales, which is where my other series is. So I think story is fundamental. Likewise, the weird map in Mr. Glimm's skull could happen anywhere. It's the setting that makes it so very, very particular. And as long as you've got such a good grounding in what you want your setting to be, your characters exist within that in a very sensible way because they couldn't otherwise. And what makes I think the book for we're talking about good is that you've got a figure, you've got an alien that lives underneath the school, and it's the fact that it shouldn't be in that story that makes it so sinister and makes it so strange. Is it's effectively a character almost from one of my other stories has interceded and is causing all of the problem that's there. And I think that's always interesting to explore.
And how do you like to explore your characters?
I think you just let them go. I think the beauty of writing on Royal Road is you usually publish about 2,000 words a day. So you have to do it quite quickly. And in that quite quick process of it, things happen you weren't expecting. And I think that's what I've always enjoyed with all my stories really is I don't plan particularly. I have an idea of where it's set and what I want to happen. And then you see where it takes you. And I think that's always the most interesting thing is you just try to make sure the characters react to whatever they do in the way that makes sense, and you build up from there. And certainly, I think that tends to make stories feel truer when you don't have the moment where you go, I'm not sure that character would ever have done that because the author wanted X to happen and they sort of forced X to happen. I think it is much more interesting when you go, well, of course that happened because that character's, of course they did that, and let's see how they get out of that now. I have had those. Is a very famous story about the Victorian writer Wilkie Collins, who was writing The Woman in White, and it was a serial, and he was publishing it quite quickly, and he had no earthly idea how this story was supposed to end, and it'd been going on for quite a long time, and he'd effectively they started a competition in the newspaper where people had to guess what his ending was, and what he was really doing was trying to find what his ending was going to be because he didn't really know where it wanted to go. I think you can have that quality sometimes as well when you're publishing on Royal Road. You've like people go, "Oh, I think this is going to happen," and you see that and go, "It's better than what I was going to happen. Let's have that happen in a few chapters time," and that's quite good fun as well.
And so what have been some of like your friends and family's reactions to some of your writing? What's some of the feedback you get?
Yeah, I think certainly my male friends very much like the stories. My wife less keen. I think she's very much she's looking forward to reading the young adult one where she feels there'll be less things blowing up and less explosions and less fighting being the focus of chapter after chapter. But yeah, it's been really nice, and I think everyone's been very, very supportive of the career change. Really, I think knowing that it's something that you always enjoy doing and you've always wanted to do. I think people are just naturally quite happy when you find yourself doing something that makes you happy, don't they? And I think it's been a lovely change because now I get to take my boy to school and pick him up from school, and lots less stress and lots less constant need to be working late at night. I have a very good process here that I get to sit here and work during the day and work a sensible working day. And just as long as you hit your targets, you're away, aren't you?
Was that a difficult transition for you?
No, not really. I think I mean, you'll know there's time, isn't there, where you just go, I'm probably at burnout stage, and you just go, I'm probably not at the stage I can carry on being in the classroom all of the time. And I think it was a very opportune moment. I think when I was suddenly able to go, and now I can focus on this.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who's saying, "Man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could just stay home and write all day." And
I think you just have to take the shot, don't you? And
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing is that you. It would have been very easy for me just to say, "Oh well, that's been nice that that's worked, and now I'll carry on as I was, and I'll keep trying to do a few words here and there." But actually, the key is just being able to say, "Right, I'm just going to totally commit to it, and I'm now going to and get the work out there, and all sorts of opportunities come to you from doing that, and." I think I'm a big believer in what will be, and I think if you want to change something, you've got to change it, haven't you? You can't just hope that you'll keep getting opportunities if you turn them down. And I think that's what this has been a brilliant opportunity.
So I can see you're very disciplined and dedicated to something you enjoy very much,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's just wonderful.
I think the first thing my publisher said to me when I said, "Well, I'm going to try to do this as a living," he says, "That's fine, but you have to treat it as a living now. It's not a hobby. It's not something that you can not do on a day you don't feel like it. If you're saying this is your job, then you need to make sure you've done it." And I think that's been really, really good advice because there are days you get up and you think, "Oh, I don't really look." Particularly, we've had a lovely summer in the UK, and you can sometimes get up and go, "Oh, it looks lovely outside. I might want to go and have a wander in the park or work in the garden for the day." But actually, you've got to say, no, no, I wouldn't have done that with my job. You wouldn't have just said, "Oh, do you know what? I'm going to sack that off for 8 hours and go do this." And I think that's been really, really important advice to say, well, if you want to treat it as a job, then it's a job. It's not a hobby. It's not something fun to do for a few hours. It's something you're going to do an 8 hour day of, and you're going to make sure at the end of that 8 hours that you've achieved what you need to do, or you're going to do a little bit more to try to make sure that you do. And I've been able to keep that up, which has been good.
And what have you learned about yourself as a writer in these last 2 years?
Um, well, as a teacher, I've always thought I have very, very good grammar, English, typing, all those sort of things. I don't. It's terrible. My editors go absolutely crazy at the the number of things that I think are spelt correctly that are absolutely not. But I think it's the amount of fun that you can have it with it really, and that actually when there aren't other things distracting you, how very, very engaged you can become in the worlds that you create. And I think when you're only doing 1,000 words here and 1,000 words there, you can lose that flow and you can lose that sense of rhythm to the world you're creating. Whereas I think having been able to sit here and have a really good block of time on something, it feels it comes a lot easier, which is weird, isn't it? I think the more you do of it, the easier it happens. It's like with most things, I think.
It's a skill, kind of a muscle you
Yeah.
have to learn to
Yeah.
develop. Yeah.
I think so, and you have to put work at it as well. It doesn't just come fully formed down. And sometimes I've never had writer's block, but I've certainly had those moments where you go, I have no idea what's about to happen, and you're sat there and you just like, "Oh, do I go do something else?" Like, no, no, just think through it and think what you want to happen next, and you eventually get there.
Yeah, I found that pacing helps my brain get moving again. If I'm stuck, I have to rove around the room a little bit. But
Yeah,
we all have our little, you know, things we have to do to keep moving,
absolutely.
I guess. Yeah. And so I don't mean to be a boring interviewer. Is there anything I you would like to talk about in particular that I haven't asked about yet?
No, I don't think so. I think what I've started to do quite a lot of these podcasts, and often the thing that's very unusual to people to hear is the idea that there isn't stuff for men to read. But that's not a problem. Rack Press get that. So I haven't had to do 10 minutes explaining why it's not a strange thing to be doing to try to write for men. I'm doing a PhD at the moment in men's writing and the sort of dearth of reading that there is for men in the world. And I had to do a presentation at university a few weeks ago. And one of the questions the professors asked was, but shouldn't boys be out doing something else other than this? And it was like the most astonishing moments in my life. Like I don't know how to answer that question, and it was quite a genuine thought that she was having was that these poor boys being forced to waste their time reading these books that they really don't need to be doing. And I just had this memory back to like in the 1800s when people were saying the same thing about women, which was, why are all these women wasting time on books? They should be learning to cook. And it was just the same. It was the same moment. But so it's interesting, really, that that's part of the issue that's out there, isn't it? Is that sense of, well, do boys really need to read? Do they really need to? And then one of the other questions, like, but the computer games are so well written now. What isn't that a better form of storytelling because it's active? You're like, no, I don't know how to. I don't know how to argue with you if that's your viewpoint. But it's interesting because I think that is sort of where I think a wider worldview is at the moment, which is, ah, bless, boys don't read, let's leave them to it, rather than no, boys don't read. What are we going to do about that?
It's horrifying that that's
Bizarre.
what occurs to people.
Yeah. And was quite sincerely held, as in like it was seen as a demerit in my argument that I hadn't considered that maybe we just needed to not worry about that and that maybe there were better things boys could do than read. And yes, that was an interesting conversation.
Reading teaches you how to think and how to reason
Yeah. But yeah,
and
if they could just run around outside, that'll be much better use of their time. It's
yeah.
shocking.
And you have these characters, especially I remember growing up, I characters have always been more important to me than plot
Yeah.
most of the times. And I've always thought, well, if that character can do it, maybe I can do this heroic thing too. And that would motivate me to maybe mature a little bit. And
But also, how do you see other worlds if you're not reading? You just see either the world that you have got around you, which is can be problematic, or you get sucked into these very three-dimensional passive worlds that are constructed for you over screens. And that's as much of certainly again as a parent, that's a huge concern is I don't want the worlds that my son inhabits to have been fully fleshed out for him in visuals and sounds and everything. You want them to do it internally. That's really important. And there shouldn't be everything presented for you as a computer game does under a linear narrative or the film that you watch. We don't let him watch film versions of the books that he likes because it's like no that you should think about what the characters are. And that's quite important, I think.
final question, since you're such a fan of series, is the Weird Map and Mr. Glimm's Skull going to be an ongoing series?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, that would be the plan. I mean, it's constructed in that way to be so. The notion of it is that his dad is basically James Bond. So they've moved to this tiny little village in order to because there's something going on that the dad's supposed to be investigating. And I liked that idea from the Hardy Boys, where the father was something big in law enforcement. So I think the notion of well, there are far more other issues that can develop in this strange little village. I'd very much like it to be. I think would be the answer.
And something I would like to ask, since you're directly investigating this this
Yeah.
drought in men's fiction with your PhD, would you reach out to us as you continue in your diploma and everything, and let us know how it goes and
Oh, I'm planning to contact you for research for interviews. I'm not allowed to yet because I haven't got ethical approval yet. But you're on my list of publishers that I need to speak to as to why you exist and that being part of the rationale behind the issue. So yes, definitely,
that's
that's a big part of the plan.
that's so exciting, and so you would be a huge help in that conversation to us as well. So that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and thank you for being part of Raconteur Press. It's
No, thank you. Looking forward to seeing my book out there.
it's such a pleasure to finally meet you. And congratulations as well and the Weird Map and Mr. Glimm's Skull. I love that title.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to read it. So thank you.
No worries at all. Very nice to meet you as well. Thank you for your time.
Have a wonderful day. It's so nice to meet you.
You too. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye bye.